Legacy Keepers podcast. This is Kare, and I'm here with Anita. Our guest today is Elaine Hildebrand, and we asked her to be here with us today because she is a writer of her memoir. Elaine's love for the spoken word began really early in life with diaries dating back to age 10. As an educator, encouraging students to read and write was her forte. Presently, her passion is travel, which marries well with writing. Elaine's home base is Winnipeg, Canada. When asked why she felt compelled to write a memoir, her answer is this quote from Leonard Cohen: 70 is the foothills of old age, that urgent invitation to complete one's work. So, Elaine, maybe you can tell us, why did you decide to write a memoir?
Well, for starters, I have regretted not writing my mother's story. I have heard her stories many times over, and I thought it's time to write my own. I wanted like a one-stop place for my children and my grandson to go to should they ever want to know a bit about who went before them.
I love
Well,
that.
I love that too, because my mom has been writing, both her mother-in-law's memoir as well as some other families' memoirs because she happens to be a good writer. And we're also grateful because she put it into a little booklet even about my dad's history. And having that legacy is so nice. Like even my kids will know something about their grandparents, right?
Exactamente.
Yeah,
Mhm.
what a great reason. So, when you wrote your memoir, did you follow a particular theme or how do you condense like 70 years? I'm not sure how old you are, but how do you condense that all into one book?
Well, when I talk, if I have the opportunity, I'll talk about my prompts that prompted me to write my different pieces,
Mm.
and then you'll probably understand it better. But as far as a theme goes, when upon rereading my memoir, I see that the theme that runs through pretty well every piece is relationships. For me, one's life story is a series of relationships, be they positive or negative or both.
I love that. I love that. So,
Yeah.
what made you pull that particular kind of idea?
Well, when I'm a people person,
Mm.
and most everything I came up with writing has to do with people and my interaction with people and how I see life.
Mhm.
I think I'll just share for a moment here that I happen to know Elaine because she's also in my writing group, and I know that she's a really good writer, and I know that she's also a poet.
Oh,
And a very good one, and a very good one. So it's really a joy for me to kind of hear about her journey and her writing journey and her desire to, kind of share her story. And I was kind of tickled pink a little bit a moment ago, when I asked her the first question about why did she decide to write a memoir, and she really jumped right in and talked about losing those stories and losing her mother's story and not recording those. And really, Anita, you and I mean, that resonates so deeply with us,
yes, it
with
does.
respect to DaisyChain Legacy Publishing. And that is why all of this began. Our publishing company, this podcast, all of that is because the stories of our loved ones were getting lost.
Mhm.
And we know that as this population is aging and as like the boomer generation is just getting so closely towards whatever end of their life is, those stories are going to be lost, and they're so important, they're so crucial to who we then became as people and who our offspring became, and just that history. So
Mhm.
I really loved hearing that, and I was really fascinated what you said, Elaine, about relationships and how your theme is about relationships, even without realizing, really, at the end of the day, isn't that the common thread that brings us in and out of people's lives and helps us make decisions and causes joys and traumas? At the end of the day, it's really about a lot of relationships. So, anyways, thank you very much for sharing all of that. Let me ask you another question here. So,
Hey, before you jump into that,
yeah.
I had a comment to make there too. One of the first thoughts I had, or explored starting Daisy Chain Legacy Publishing was because a friend of mine had three parents, so like a step parent and her mom and her dad, all die within like a 1 to 2 year period. And I think one or two of them had dementia at that point. And she said, after dealing with all of that, she said the regret that she had was that she hadn't asked them more about their life. And so she was kind of in that place where she was saying, everybody ask your parents about their life because it might be too late to get those answers. When you think of it and you know that it's near their end. And I know for my Oma's story, my mom took a lot of it from an interview that one of her cousins had done with my grandmother. And they had just recorded on the old tape recorder, and my mom took that recording. And so even something, like that, because I know for me, my kids live in Vancouver and my parents live in Ontario, and so they don't know them very well. And so having something in writing is just so important. And I love that realization for you that this is your chance. Well, while
Exactly.
you're healthy and
Exactly.
traveling and you have, I'm sure, so many interesting stories to share from your life. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Indeed.
I think so too. I think so too. Okay, so let me launch into the next question here because what I would really like to know is like your journey of writing your memoir. And what I mean by journey is the process, like not just the concept of doing it to completion, but rather how did that go for you as you were recording those elements of your life story that ended up being part of it? Was there difficult emotions involved? Did you experience joy? Was it wonderful or hard to go through those memories? um can you share a little bit about that with us, that journey part of it?
So you're asking about the challenges of writing it. Is that what I'm
Well,
hearing?
I suppose that the challenges could definitely come into play there too, but I really wanted to know more about sort of how that felt for you during the process of writing and what
Uh,
you went through.
yes. During the process of writing, of course, in my process, how it happened was that the prompts I was following was a question every week,
Of
and
course.
that was my writing prompt. So um, then came the challenge of uh, what's whatever story comes to mind, what that question triggers.
Yes.
Now, which story do I choose?
Right.
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 So
Yes.
that was one of the challenges, and then what I would go with is if I had several stories that came to mind.
Yep.
I also went back with photographs because I have photographs, from I
Hmm.
think when I was 9 months old. Um, so then I'd go with a story that flowed and felt right for my inner compass, I'll say. And
Yeah.
I scrapped a few pieces of writing, but not that many. And the other thing I did in the process was I said before that I regretted not writing my mother's stories, but as it turns out, my mother and I have been besties all my life. And what I do, she's still with us and she's very present mentally. And so I would read
Wonderful.
some of my pieces as I was writing them when I'd go visit her and see what that would trigger in her. And also, she would give me feedback. So that
Wow.
also helped me with the process. And what I would say, which is maybe a little diversion, but this is another benefit of writing your memoir that I really didn't, was kind of unexpected to me, is once my book was published and I brought my mother a copy. She's blind, so she can't read it. But when guests come to visit her in her care home, they read from my book. And so
That's so
this is,
cool.
oh, it has been so wonderful, such a
Wow.
gift to her and to the guests because it triggers conversation. She's
Yes.
97. And so this will trigger different stories by her, and she gets to hear her daughter's point of view. I'm
I
sure
love
probably.
that. I
Yeah.
love that. I'm really curious, when you would share with your mom during the writing process, did she ever say, no, that's not what happened? This is what, like, did you ever have disagreements on what actually happened? Because I'm sure a lot of this is many, many years ago.
Right. Actually, I was surprised because she's a very black and white person. And she doesn't like gray areas because it has to be it has to be sin free, you know.
Yes.
So, you know, I wondered about my writer's license, how she would feel about that. But actually, there was very little correction and criticism, and
Mm.
she absolutely just jumped in and loved it.
Wow. What a great way to do it, with your family member that kind of lived through all of that with you, right?
Exactly. And
That's rare.
you were talking about
Yeah.
Anita, you were talking about some of your family and having recordings and things. One of the questions in my book was, is there anything memorable about the day of your birth? Well, how would I know except talk to your mother, right?
That's right.
And
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. That what an absolute treasure that
Mhm.
your mom is still alive. That in and of itself is a treasure. I know that very deeply because, that generation in my family, the part of my family I was very close to has all passed on. They all passed on early. And so to hear that there are people out there that still have, that generation, the older generation available to them just for love and memories and joy is, I just think it's so awesome. It's such a treasure. And the fact that your mom was there to contribute to your memoir is, it's unique. That is definitely something I don't think we're going to hear a lot. Um, yeah, I think your process sounds like it was really interesting. And then I did have one sort of offshoot question, Anita, before you get to yours. I kind of wanted to know if, as because you talked about how you were going through a process where you were given a question every week, and that question was meant to generate the writing of, incidents, memories, stories, whatever. And then sometimes, a story, several stories you could choose from to focus on. What I wanted to know was, during this process for you and during the writing of your memoir, did you end up telling stories, memories, or remembering things that you didn't think you were going to at the beginning? Or did things come up for you that were a little bit of a revelation where you're like, oh yeah, that, or something along those lines at any time?
you're making that my hair bristle a little. Yes, time and again, time and again, time and again.
Wow.
We know when we start writing, we don't know what's going to go down on that page. And same
Yeah.
with these memories. Sometimes what evolved, and that's where I I feel like the fact that I like to write poetry quite often, uh, a narrative would I it would work into the story would work into a poem, even a list.
Yeah.
So my memoir is so much more than simply telling a story, a narrative.
Yeah.
It has
Yeah.
poetry, it is this, it even has a friendly letter that I wrote to my husband after he passed.
Aw.
That
Yeah,
sounds
so
amazing.
believe me, all
Yeah.
kinds of emotions come up, and and you know, you find out what you've dealt with, what you haven't, what maybe needs therapy.
Right.
So was that positive for you having those emotions come up or?
Absolutely,
Oh, good.
absolutely, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, absolutely.
Therapeutic
Right.
in some ways,
Mm,
right?
Yeah.
for sure,
Yeah.
Yeah.
indeed.
How long did it take to write your whole
Well,
memoir?
a good year, because
Yeah.
I wrote into one question a week, and sometimes, you know, that's another challenge. And sometimes a question needs time to ponder. Sometimes it needs research.
Yeah.
Sometimes it needs digging through photographs. Maybe it needs digging into my diaries. So it's more than just writing words on a page.
Right.
And then some, life still goes on. It's not like you're only writing. It's that your writing is like your morning coffee treat. And then,
Yeah.
if you miss a week or two, well, then all of a sudden, okay, and now I've got it. It's come together. And then you put several down.
Right.
Yeah.
So what would you say is the most interesting part of your story, if you have a favorite?
Well, I look at myself as a spiritual seeker.
Okay.
And the parts in my story that express who I know myself to be and who I am becoming are the ones that speak the most to me, and that I think are most precious to share. And putting on paper how I view myself. The readers that know me, they may or may not be surprised at who I think I am. And some of them may, like a lot of these people that are reading my book to my mother, are people that have known me, I'll say, in my previous life. And
Yes.
and probably they had some surprises.
That's so interesting. Like I remember at Kare's wedding, at weddings, especially second weddings that are older in life, you have all of a sudden these different groups of people showing up that are from your previous lives, right? And you
Yeah.
realize, because Kare and I think I was her oldest or longest term friend at the wedding
Yes.
because we
Yes.
knew each other in our 20s.
Yeah.
But she has these different, these were the people that I knew when I was living in Nanaimo, and these are so I'm sure that those segments of your life must like kind of come all together when you're writing your whole story.
Indeed.
And you know what came to mind too? And I just want to say this because you said something a little bit ago, Elaine, about the person you were and the person you're becoming. And I think that is really crucial because I think that's one of the things that stops people from starting to write their life story or working with, a writing coach or something, is they think their journey's not over, and therefore they don't then have the right to record what they've been through because it's not over yet. And I've got a message for all those people. It's never going to be over until
That's
it's truly over because
that's
you're
right.
not here anymore. So we are always changing and we're always growing. And what we were before, be that a year ago or 10 years ago or at our birth, is not the person that we are today or that we're going to be next year or 10 years down the road. So
Mhm.
I'm so glad you said that. And to our listeners, I want to say, the journey truly is never over, and how we evolve and change, never stops. And that's what I think. And I just want to say this one thing and then we'll move on. But that, to me, that's the major difference between like an autobiography and a memoir. A memoir is allowed to be a segment. You can write a memoir about one moment in time, about a year of your life, about your quest to become a teacher or an actor or a writer or whatever it might be. It can be a theme, it can be something, geographically related, it could be a segment of time, and really, it's not about feeling like you have to get to the end so that you have this one important golden lesson to share with everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Then
it's
it
an ongoing
becomes a
thing.
biography because you're gone.
That's
Right.
right.
Yes. Yes. Well,
Exactly.
I would love to end this with a short reading. If you have a poem from your book or a paragraph or two that
Okay,
you can share, I would love to hear that.
Yeah.
here we go. When you think
Okay.
of the word home, which place comes to mind? What made it dear and unique to you? I am here, therefore home is here. This is what the word home has come to mean to me as a solo traveler. I no longer yearn for that certain place called home. There are so many sayings about home. There's no place like home. Home is where the heart is. Gee, but it's good to be back home. For me, presently, home is here. However, I have fond memories of every home or structure I have ever lived in. My first memory of a home goes back to where I celebrated my fourth birthday. It was a two-story house on First Street in the village I grew up in. I don't remember the house so much as I remember the little barn that housed a cow at our next door neighbor's place. I recall the neighbor squirting milk at me when he was milking the cow. Obviously, I must have been in the barn watching. Shortly after my fourth birthday, we moved into a house on Main Street. Dad saved up enough money to purchase a double corner lot on First Street. It is my understanding that he worked out an agreement with the owner of the house to purchase it and pay for it in installments. The house was moved onto the lot just prior to the school starting, which would have been grade 1, as there was no kindergarten in those days. And here's the poem I wrote about the pink house. The pink house sat on a corner on First Street. Just 3 rooms, kitchen, living room, bedroom. I grew up in the pink house. Mom sewed at the window. Sister and I slept on the Davenport. Just 3 rooms, kitchen, living room, bedroom. 3 rooms equaled a house filled with love. Mom sewed at the window. Sister and I slept on the Davenport. The pink house saw love bloom as I grew up. 3 rooms equaled a house filled with love. The doorstep witnessed many a good night kiss. The pink house saw love bloom as I grew up. I felt whole, wrapped up in the arms of the pink house. The doorstep witnessed many a good night kiss. I grew up in the pink house. I felt whole, wrapped up in the arms of the pink house. The pink house sat on a corner on First Street.
I love that. And thank you so much for sharing that with us. I mean, the fact that you added poetry into your memoir and, your relationship with your mom throughout your memoir, like that's really unique and beautiful. So thank you. Thank you so much, Elaine, for joining us today and sharing these like precious insights with us. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So this is Kare and Anita reminding you all to keep your legacy alive. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.